Level 1, $0. At this stage, you don't possess a financial signal yet. Your old friends are polite to you, but that's where it ends. You get the casual nod, the empty "what's up," and the brief conversation that awkwardly fizzles out in less than 4 minutes. When you talk about your big plans, your side hustles, or the future you want to build, they listen with passive eyes. They don't disrespect you, because they don't think about you enough to disrespect you. To them, you are social background noise. You are the guy whose name is left off the primary invitation list. You are always the one texting first. They reply when they get around to it, sometimes later that night, sometimes 2 days later, sometimes never. And you spend time analyzing the silence, wondering what you did to lose their interest. You didn't do anything. You just haven't given them a structural reason to prioritize you. When plans are made, your inclusion is loosely confirmed and easily cancelled. You are treated as an option because, at $0, you have no leverage to offer the group. The majority of your old circle has quietly decided that your presence isn't worth an investment of their focused attention. But remember this. The 1 or 2 friends who actually stay on the curb with you at this level, the ones who see you when you are invisible, are real. They are betting on you before anyone else can see the payout. They are worth more than the millions you will build, but they are the exception. Level 2, $30,000. Something small shifts here. It isn't dramatic wealth, but you have crossed the threshold of basic survival. You have built a baseline level of stability, and stability is its own social currency. Suddenly, your text messages get answered on the same day. Your old friends start to treat your time with a subtle layer of respect that wasn't there before. When you say you'll show up at a specific time, they actually believe you, because your lifestyle now radiates reliability instead of chaos. This is the stage where you are quietly brought back into the primary loop. You get introduced to their wider networks, their other friends, and their partners. You are no longer kept on the periphery of the social circle. You are an active, recognized participant. They notice the small upgrades, the slightly better clothes, the fact that you aren't constantly stressed about minor expenses. When the bill arrives at a casual dinner, you pay your share effortlessly. There's no awkward calculation, and no one has to cover for you. But here is the trap of the $30,000 mark. You feel this sudden warmth and you think you have achieved true status. You haven't. You have simply become visible. Being considered safe is not the same as being chosen, and confusing the two will stall your ambition. Level 3, $100,000. This is the first level where the dynamic officially reverses. For the first time in your life, your old friends start texting you first. They initiate the plans, check in on your schedule, and try to secure your availability days in advance. Your time has acquired a tangible, ambient value that they can instinctively sense, even if they can't mathematically calculate it. But as your value rises, a new set of unspoken expectations materializes out of nowhere. The social atmosphere begins to crystallize. The jokes change. What used to be harmless teasing turns into low-level, passive-aggressive humor about your income or your workload. A subtle, unspoken competitive energy enters the room. Friends who used to be completely relaxed around you start measuring their own progress against yours. When you share a small win, the responses are politely strained. You notice the microscopic delays in their congratulations, the quiet eye rolls when you turn around. They talk about you when you aren't in the room, defining you entirely by your new financial milestone rather than who you are as a person. They are no longer just happy you are stable. They are starting to feel uncomfortable with the gap that is widening between your trajectory and theirs. At $100,000, you are officially being chosen, but you are also introducing a mirror into the relationship, and most people do not like what they see when they look into it. Level 4, $250,000. This is the danger zone. From the outside, this is the first level that looks like absolute wealth to your old social circle. The apartment upgrade, the premium brand on your car keys, the subtle change in your daily habits, everything screams success to people who are still struggling. And because it looks like wealth, it activates the pretenders. The social dynamics around you shift from casual friendship to active performance. When you walk into a room, a quiet hush falls over the old group before they quickly reset their faces. The effortless comfort of the past is officially dead. People begin to laugh a little too hard at your jokes. They agree with your opinions far too quickly, nodding along even when you say something completely ordinary. This is the stage where the business pitches start. Old friends drop casual business ideas over a drink, testing the waters to see if you'll fund their lack of execution. They treat you like a gatekeeper to a life they want, offering a frictionless version of themselves just to stay in your orbit. If you aren't paying close attention, you will mistake this synthetic validation for genuine connection. You'll feel flattered by the sudden warmth, but look closely at the corners of the room. The friends who actually cared about you are starting to back away, uncomfortable with the theater happening around you. If you make long-term social decisions based on the applause you get at this level, you are building your circle on shifting sand. They love the signal, not the person throwing it out. Level 5, $500,000. The fracture becomes permanent here. You have entered a financial stratosphere that your old friends simply cannot relate to anymore. This is the level where you get quietly excluded from the casual plans. They start a separate group chat without you, assuming it's too small time for you or that you'll make things awkward. When you do sit down with them, the conversation feels like walking on eggshells. Every topic feels dangerous because the lifestyle gap is too wide to ignore. If you try to vent about your real stresses, business risks, high taxes, or sleepless nights, they look at you with cold, unsympathetic eyes. To them, your problems are a luxury. A quiet resentment settles into the bedrock of your old relationships. They feel like life has dealt them a bad hand, and your success is a constant reminder of it. The smallest disagreement can trigger a massive blowout, where years of unexpressed envy suddenly come pouring out over something trivial. You realize you can no longer buy your way back into the past. Paying for every dinner doesn't make them like you more, it just makes them feel smaller. You are forced to make a choice. Clip your own wings to keep them comfortable, or accept the isolation that comes with ascending. The circle shrinks drastically. The weekends get quieter, and the phone stops ringing with casual check-ins. But as the old doors lock shut, a new room opens up, one filled with people who aren't measuring their insecurities against your net worth because they are too busy building their own. Level 6. $1 million. The night you finally see 7 figures in your account, you tell absolutely no one. You don't post a status, you don't buy a chain, and you don't throw a party. You realize that true security doesn't need to shout. You stop flinching at menus, and the low-grade survival anxiety that used to dictate your life completely disappears. But even if you keep your mouth shut, your old friends notice the change in how you carry yourself. The bracing is gone, and because they can sense it, an intense, unnatural formality creeps into the dynamic. They stop treating you like a peer and start treating you like a public figure. When they introduce you to outsiders, your financial status becomes your title, completely overshadowing your actual name. Suddenly, people you haven't seen since middle school begin sliding into your direct messages with overly polite, highly calculated greetings. They don't ask to hang out to catch up anymore. They ask to pick your brain or take you to lunch to discuss an idea. Every interaction becomes transactional. When you sit across from them, they agree with every single word you say, terrified of creating friction that might alienate a millionaire. You realize that their friendliness isn't organic affection, it's strategic patience. They are positioning themselves in your life just in case an opportunity falls off your table. But among the noise, something beautiful happens. The one childhood friend who never cared about the money calls you up out of the blue just to watch a game on a regular couch. They don't ask about your business, and they don't bring up your wealth. In that room, you aren't a signal or a resource, you're just you, and that normal house becomes your only sanctuary. Level 7. $5 million. At this stage, the performance drops entirely because trying to pretend looks desperate. Instead, old friends switch to an entirely new strategy: entitlement. An old buddy will schedule a formal meeting or sit you down with a full investment proposal for a venture they expect you to fund entirely. Because you understand business, you look at the data and calmly say, "No, this layout doesn't make financial sense." In a single fraction of a second, the mask slips. The warmth vanishes, replaced by a cold, sharp bitterness. Within 24 hours, the text messages start arriving from mutual contacts, accusing you of changing, hoarding your money, and turning your back on the people who knew you before. They don't see your refusal as a logical business decision. They see it as a personal betrayal. To them, your $5 million belongs to the collective past, and you are being greedy by keeping it. This is the most painful filter of the entire journey. You have to accept that to many of the people you grew up with, your success isn't an inspiration. It's a lottery ticket they feel entitled to cash in. You are forced to draw a heavy line in the sand. You lock your inner circle down to maximum security, realizing that access to you must be aggressively managed. You begin spending your time around high-net-worth peers who have built their own world, where the conversation is free of hidden agendas because nobody needs your capital to survive. And right next to them sit the one or two original childhood friends who survived the climb, the ones who never asked for a dime, because they valued your presence far more than your balance. Level 8. $10 million. You have officially ascended into an entirely different social stratosphere. Your daily life, your environment, and your conversations look nothing like the past. But this is the level where the silence gets heavy. You log onto social media one evening and see photos of a massive holiday gathering or an old friend's milestone party. You check your phone. There was no invite. There wasn't even a casual heads-up. You realize that your presence is no longer requested, not because they hate you, but because your success makes them deeply uncomfortable. Standing next to you forces them to look at a mirror of their own unrealized potential, and it's easier to just leave you out of the room. The realization hits with a cold, psychological sting. You did nothing wrong except win, yet the punishment for winning is total exile from the world you used to call home. An invisible wall of unexpressed resentment and profound disconnect has officially built itself up between you and your past. They have moved on to a life where they can complain about bills together, and they have assumed you have moved on too. You stop trying to bridge the gap. You stop sending the awkward let's catch up texts that lead to stiff, formal conversations. You sit down with an older mentor figure, someone who built their wealth decades before you, and they look at you with calm, knowing eyes. They tell you the exact same thing happened to them. You finally let go of the heavy guilt of outgrowing your old environment. You accept that growth requires shedding old dynamics that can no longer survive the altitude. You open your phone and quietly clear out the contacts list, deleting names that have turned into empty, silent ghosts. You are left with a pristine, highly intentional digital footprint. The noise is gone, and the space is ready for the final realization. Level 9. $50 million. At this final peak, the entire game makes complete sense. Nobody chases you anymore, and nobody performs. The social circles at this level are heavily curated, highly managed, and strictly private. The desperate energy of the lower tiers is completely absent. You look back across the entire journey, from the ghosting at $0, to the fake laughter at $250,000, to the bitter entitlement at $5 million. You host a quiet, unassuming dinner in your home, completely insulated from the demands of the world outside. And sitting directly across from you is that exact same childhood friend who sat with you on the curb when your bank account read absolute zero. They look at you, and they don't see $50 million. They don't see a funding source, a status symbol, or a public figure. They just see the same guy they grew up with. You look at the contrast between the hundreds of people who clamored for your attention along the way and the one person who never changed their tone. True loyalty cannot be bartered, bought, or manufactured. It can only be preserved. Your phone sits flat on the table, completely quiet. There are no dramatic text threads, no passive-aggressive check-ins, and no synthetic validation. Just absolute, unshakable peace. You realize that the wealth didn't change what true friendship is. It simply acted as a massive filter, stripping away every single piece of fiction until only the truth remained standing. Build the wealth, but build the clarity alongside it. Watch the signals, understand the market, and keep both eyes open at every single level. Subscribe to see clearly.